Greetings, Michael DDA here. Thank you for joining us today. Last week we did a pop quiz. I'm going to try a quiz again today as a review from last week, just to do something different, fun. I can kind of pick key points that I want us to remember, and we'll see what happens. Here's the first question. What did Miriam and Aaron complain about concerning Moses? We started this in Numbers 12. We did 12, 13, and 14 last week, but 12 was about the story of Aaron and Miriam complaining against Moses. What did they complain about? Well, this is probably easier for you to understand since it's in the first verse. Here's what it says. Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. You know what? The more I think about this, the more I realize that I think it came up that he had been given a woman when he was working with, leading Cush for those many years. I mean, it was like 49 years that he was leading Cush. This Cush's seed, really is Cush's seed in the city of Cush. And it was Adonia, who was given to him. She was Cush's woman, or the king of Cush. I forget what the king of Cush's name was. Started with a K. Kikianus, I think. Sounds right. At any rate, that's who it seems that they were complaining about. You took a daughter of, she's Cushite, a daughter of Cush. That's what they were concerned about. We weren't supposed to take daughters of Cush. Remember, Abraham told his servant not to take a woman from Canaan for his son Isaac. Then Isaac told Jacob not to take a daughter of the Canaanites. They were staying away from the seed of Cush, the daughters of Cush. Okay, next question. Here it is. Who called Moses Adonai? Do you remember? We talked about it last week. The answer's down here in verse 11. And Aaron said to Moses, "Oh, Adonai, please do not lay this sin on us." We saw that it was probably Miriam who should have called Moses Adonai, but didn't. She was complaining, trying to make herself equal. You know, I had a really good note about that. Here it is. Miriam wanted to be great, but was sent away from Israel. Remember, she was put out of the camp. She got leprosy. Got put out of the camp for 7 days. All the ladies thinking, why is Miriam outside the camp? Do you think it came up that she was talking against her Adon? Miriam wanted to prophesy, but received rebuke. Miriam wanted honor, but got public shame. Miriam wanted to expose Moses' fault or perceived faults, and instead her own faults were exposed. Oh my goodness. We were supposed to be heading towards Paran, the wilderness of Paran. And here we are waiting for Miriam. The whole camp's waiting for her. Talk about public shame, my goodness. Well, my next question, I guess I exposed a bit. I said, who got the worst of the punishment? Aaron or Miriam? Remember what Moses said to, what Yehovah said to Moses? Look what it says in verse 14 here. If her father had spit in her face, he's likening what she did to Moses to a woman, a daughter, speaking to her father. Would she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp 7 days, and afterwards she may be received again. She was lucky to be received again. We're going to see someone today who's going to do something very, very similar to what she did to Moses. Only it's going to be a man. And it's going to have severe consequences. Next, we talked about the spies, the 12 spies that were sent into the land to do some exploration for us, some reconnaissance. One of those spies was a Gentile, or was actually born a Gentile. Do you remember who it was? He was a seed of Esau. Oh, isn't that amazing? This man was a seed of Esau. Shows you anyone can join himself to Yehovah's kingdom. Even the sons of the flesh. Remember, Esau was always a man of the flesh. It was Jacob who was a man of the spirit. He cared about spiritual things. When their father died, remember, it was Jacob who took the promise. I want the land. I want to raise up the seed. Even though the Canaanites had the land, what did Esau take? All of Isaac's stuff. The servants, the cattle, the precious metals, and the silver and the gold. He took it all. Anything that he could carry away, he took. But Jacob wanted the spiritual promise. Did I give you the answer to the last question? It was Caleb. Caleb was a son of Jephthah. Here. In fact, let's go there. Esau, 13:6. Here it is. Caleb, son of Jephthah, Caleb ben Jephthah, the Kenizites, unto this day, because that he wholly followed Yehovah Elohim of Israel. They were giving Hebron to Caleb. But look what it says. I had to do some research. Where does Caleb come from? What is a Kenizzite? Here's a Kenizzite. These are the names of Esau's sons. Eliphaz. Then it says the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Kenaz is the Kenizzite that we're talking about. He was a relation to Amalek, because Kenaz was also the brother of Amalek through another mother. Ooh, isn't that interesting? Okay, so then it was what or who were the 10 spies afraid of? Here it is in 28. Do you remember what and who the 10 spies were afraid of? Here it is. 28. Nevertheless, the people who dwelt in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. They were afraid of those fortifications, that they would lose many men because of those fortifications. Moreover, we saw the seed of Anak in the land. Descendants of Anak, the giants. And then look at the people that they're afraid of. The first one is the Amalekites. We were just talking about Amalek, son of Eliphaz, the son of his old age, given to him through Timnah. It was the Amalekites who attacked us in the rear when we came out of Egypt, killed our defenseless people, the stragglers. Remember, Moses held up the rod of Elohim. And when he held it up, we defeated the Amalekites. But when he let it go down, then they then they started to defeat us. That was the Amalekites. Oh, Yehovah is going to have some severe judgments for the Amalekites. He's going to have them be wiped off the face of the earth. I don't think they did, though. All right, next question. After hearing the bad report, the people, Israel's seed are the people. Right here, it said the people lifted up their voices and cried that Yehovah brought them out of Egypt to kill them. And who else? Their words, we're going to see today, are going to have huge consequences for them. You know, the words that we speak have weight. I don't know how it works, and I'm not a name it and claim it kind of guy. You know, I went to churches like that. Oh, we don't do retreats, we do advances. But you know what? There's something about our words that are important. Yehovah hears their words. What did they say? Why has Yehovah brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our women and our children should become victims? See, this is really an important thing for us to see, because he's not talking to the ladies. When he talks about the people, here it says in the first line, first verse of 14. So all the assembly lifted up their voices, and I don't know if it says cried. No, just up their voices. And the people wept that night. It's added words. They didn't say cried. And the people wept that night. And all Israel's seed complained against Moses and Aaron. The assembly of the people are Israel's seed. And they're concerned about their women and children. They're not the women. They're the men. And they're tough. The women, and they're tough. Really important that we understand that. Here's another one. When the people decided to choose another Rosh. Here, they're doing it right here. So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt, a Rosh ahead. We're going to deal with that yet again today. Don't they get it? What did Aaron and Moses do? Well, you can read it. It's in the next verse, isn't it? They fell on their faces before the assembly of the assemblage of the assembly of Israel's seed. Fell on their faces. I almost said, duck and cover! But they're not ducking and cover. They're not trying to get away from anything. They're trying to make intercession for these rebellious men. Last question. What did Joshua and Caleb call the people of the land? What did they call the people of the land? They're giving them another spirit. Don't take the spirit of fear. What is it that these wonderful men said? Let's take a look at it. It starts in 14:7. And they spoke to all the congregation, all the assembly of Israel's seed, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is exceedingly good land. If Yehovah delights in us, then he shall bring us into this land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yehovah, nor fear the people of the land. Look what it says. For they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and Yehovah is with us. Do not fear them. They are our bread. That's what he said about the people of the land. We're going to eat them up. You know, that's so interesting, because when we later on in this book of Numbers, when we get to 27 and 28, we're going to be talking about some of this very same thing. Let me see if I can find one of them. There are prey. Here it is. So Moab said to the elders of Midian. This is Moab and Midian, concerned about Israel's seed. Now this company will lick up everything around us as an ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. Hear that? They're going to lick us up as an ox licks up the grass of the field. Is the ox very much afraid of the grass? No, he's just going to take what he wants, isn't he? Here's Balaam's prophesy with his eyes open. Remember, he always received his words from Yehovah in a dream. But this time, it says in 24, he received him with his eyes wide open. Listen to what he says. Elohim brings him out of Egypt. He has strength like a wild ox, and he shall consume the nations, his enemies. He shall break their bones and pierce them with arrows. He bows down. He lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who shall rouse him? Blessed is he who blesses you, and cursed is he who curses you. Well, we talked about this same metaphor as a wild ox licks up the grass and a lion devouring his prey. We see the same metaphor here in Isaiah 5. It says he will lift up a banner to the nations from afar and will whistle to them. The banner, he's whistling to the banner. These are the same people that he's gathering in these last days. Remember, I keep talking about this verse. It's so very important. Psalms 50 verse 5 says, gather together my kind, my Kasid, those who cut covenant with me by slaughter. This is what we're talking about right here. But he will lift up a banner to the nations from afar and will whistle to them from the ends of the earth. Surely they shall come speedily. Gather together my kind. We become his kind at Passover. It's coming up soon. Surely they will come with speed swiftly. No one will be weary or stumble among them. Hear that? Those that wait upon Yehovah shall renew their strength. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Oh, all these things fit together so perfectly. No one will slumber or sleep, nor will the belt of their loins be loosed, nor the strap of their sandals be broken, whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horse hooves will be like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roaring will be like a lion. They will roar like young lions. Yes, they will roar and lay hold of the prey. They will carry it away safely, but no one will deliver. In that day they will roar against them, like the roaring of the sea. And if one looks to the land, behold darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened by the clouds. Why is that? Because Yehovah is with them, and the clouds are darkening the suns. Darkening the sun, not the suns. Darkening the sun. Oh, so beautiful. Well, I want to continue here for this week. We actually went a little bit further, but let me continue here. It says, and all the congregation, they're trying to give them the truth, to inspire them to move ahead and believe Yehovah and what his word says through Moses. And all the assembly said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of Yehovah appeared in the tent of meeting before all Israel's seed. Hear that? They're trying to inspire them. The people decide to stone them with stones. And what happens? Yehovah appears. The glory. No, the glory. What's the glory? We saw it last week. The pillars of fire and smoke. In this case, daytime, it's probably smoke. Then Yehovah said to Moses, how long will this people reject me? How long will the people scorn me? They put reject me, similar. And how long will they not believe in me? In me. In all the signs I have performed in their midst. Remember, these are men we're only the second year. After we left Egypt, we're not even through the second year. We're like 14 months, 15 months. We just left Egypt a year and a half ago. We saw the plagues that Yehovah brought on the land. We saw the Red Sea open, the Gulf of Aqaba open, and then close on those rebellious men who were coming after us. Finishing off all the men who were left in Egypt. What was left? Ladies, children. Devastation. The crops were gone. Everything was gone. We saw it with our own eyes. We saw the manna come down. We saw the rocks split at Horeb and the water come out and nourish us for a year. All these things we saw with our own eyes. And yet, we still don't believe that Yehovah is going to do what he says he's going to do. Do we believe it now? You know, Yehovah is looking for men who have a new heart. It's not about the flesh of Jacob anymore. It's about men who are going to serve Yehovah with their whole heart. They've got his statutes, his judgments, his ordinances written right here. And they follow them. They don't follow the other Elohim of the land. Got separated from them, didn't we? Then he says, how long will these people scorn me? And how long will they not believe in me, in the signs I have performed in their midst? You know what? He's talking to Israel. He's not talking to the Gentiles. The Gentiles don't have any relationship with Yehovah, do they? Oh, in our minds we do. Oh, believe in Jesus. There's no Jew or Greek. There's no man or male or female. Oh, folks, put that New Testament stuff away. It's leading you astray. There's a big difference between a man and a woman. It's men who are being killed right now, not the ladies. How many people believe in Yehovah, but I've said many people believe in Yehovah, but few believe him and act on his truths. Well, I had some New Testament verses. Even the demons believe in Yehovah, but they do not believe him. I don't even want to go to the New Testament. I'm sick of the New Testament. Every time I go to the New Testament, I regret it. Let's go to verse 12. He says, I will strike them with pestilence and disinherit them. Who's he talking about? He's talking about disinheriting Israel's seed for their unbelief. I will strike them with pestilence and you can't disinherit somebody who's not an heir of the promise. Again, he's talking to Israel. He's not talking to the Gentiles. But only the sons are the heirs. Only the seed can be disinherited. Yehovah is saying he wants to start all over with Moses. A man who will follow him. A man that he speaks to, we saw last week, mouth to mouth. Even though he's with Israel, he talks to them face to face. But he spoke to Moses mouth to mouth. You know, Carissa said something interesting last week. Maybe it wasn't mouth to mouth. Maybe it was mouth to mouth. What they said, what he said, Moses said. What Moses said, Yehovah said. Oh, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Because Moses is a shalach, a sent one of Yehovah. We'll see that later today, I hope. I will make of you, of thee, a nation greater and mightier than they. You know what? That's almost prophetic. We're going to see something that is prophetic shortly, but this is almost prophetic in itself because this is what he wants. A nation that will follow him solely, wholly. W-H-O-L-L-Y. Fully. And Moses said to Yehovah, listen, here's Moses again, trying to save his people. And Moses said to Yehovah, then the Egyptians will hear it. If you do that, the Egyptians will hear of it. For by your might you brought these people up from among them. And they will tell the inhabitants of this land, they have heard that you, who have heard that you are among these people, that you, here, like, this is what they're telling the inhabitants of the land. It says Lord, but it's not Lord. This is Darby. I like how Darby put it. At least he used Yehovah's name. And they will tell the inhabitants of this land, who have heard that thou, Yehovah, are in the midst of this people. That's where he is. He's in the center of their camp. Pillar of fire and smoke. Started the first day of the second year. That thou, Yehovah, are in the midst of the people. That thou, Yehovah, lettest thyself be seen eye to eye. Look at that. This is what I was telling you. Eye to eye. He lets himself be seen with his people. Eye to eye. And that thy cloud standeth over them. And that thou goest before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Who else gets to see that? He says he speaks to them. I will speak with him mouth to mouth. This is when we were talking about Miriam and Aaron. He's closer. Here he talked about face to face in Exodus 33. And Yehovah spoke unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh to his friend. And he turned again into the camp. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, we read that. The nations seem to know Yehovah's name and know that he watches over them. Look at what it was saying here, that they have heard that you, Yehovah, this is what the nations have heard, Yehovah. Remember, the Pharaoh in Egypt said, I do not know Yehovah. Well, he did find out who Yehovah was. They know his name. Listen, this is Deuteronomy. Surely I have taught you statutes and judgments, just as Yehovah, my Elohim, commanded me, that you should act according to them in the land which you go to possess. Therefore be careful to observe them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples who will hear all these statutes. These are the peoples of the land. and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has Elohim so near to it as Yehovah, our Elohim, is to us? They know his name. For whatever reason, we may call upon him. And what great nation is there that has such statutes and judgments as are in this law, which I set before you this day? He's seen among his people face to face. He continues. Now, if you kill these people as one man, did you hear that? As one ish. These people as one ish, one man. You know, this is the plural he. When you think about this, what did he say? Let my son, my firstborn, go, that he may serve me. But they won't serve him. We're going to see. He's been tested 10 times. We're going to see him be tested another 3 or 4 times today. Oh my goodness, when does it ever stop? He's going to destroy him as he destroys one man. Now, if you kill these people as one man, then the nations which have heard of your fame will speak, saying, because Yehovah was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. Gonna get a bad name for yourself, Yehovah. Hear this? This is Moses reasoning with Yehovah. Isn't that, I mean, that alone is amazing. 17. And now I pray, let the power of Adonai be great, just as you have spoken, saying, I looked for this morning. My question was to you on our test, who called Moses Adonai? It was Aaron. Oh, Adonai, don't let this sin come on us. We have sinned. Don't let this come on us. But when I knew there was another place where we talked about Adonai, because I knew Moses calls Yehovah Adonai. Where was it? I found it. It was in this lesson right here, is in this verse. But when I looked for Adonai, the word Adonai really is Adon with a yod on it that says my Adon. Now I pray thee, let the power of my Adon be great. Aaron called Moses my Adon, Adoni. Moses is doing the same thing with Yehovah, the exact same word. But you know what? When you look it up in the Strong's, it uses the Adon word for Aaron talking to Moses, but for Moses talking to Yehovah, they give it a completely different number. Why? It's exactly the same word. Adonai. It's really frustrating when I see things like this. I found it by accident because I didn't search for the Strong number. I searched for the word. And it wasn't until today, because I've written in articles, 3 articles about Adonai in general, my master, trying to help people understand the suffix ending of Adon. I did Adonai for women and Adonai for men. And I pointed out that it's only men like Moses who actually call Yehovah Adonai. my master. Everybody else, Abraham, they called Abraham Adonai. But all the men under Abraham called him Adonai, just as all the men under Moses call Moses Adonai. It's only Moses who calls Yehovah Adonai. Well, this is really important things. Yehovah is lifting up, raising up right now men in the world who will call him Adonai, because they learned to follow him before they were raised up and made his shalakim, his sent ones. Here's what he's praying to his Adonai. And isn't this interesting? He says, as you have spoken. As you have spoken. He's going back to the very words which Yehovah spoke to him to give to the people. Listen to what he says, and I'll show you where it's at. He says, Yehovah is long-suffering, abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity, evil, and rebellion, transgression. But he by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the sons, not the children, the sons. Men are the ones who bear the guilt of sin. Your women, your maids, your servants, all bring sin on you, the master, to the third and the fourth generation. But how can this curse be broken? It's by Israel loving Yehovah with all their lavav, their nefesh, and me'od. We talked about this in Loving Yehovah 101. We love Yehovah with all our me'od only when we do it according to his statutes and his judgments and his ordinances. Here's the verse that he's quoting from. Look at this. And Yehovah passed before Moses and proclaimed, Yehovah, Yehovah Elohim, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving the iniquity and transgressions and sin, but by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons and the sons' sons to the third and fourth generation. Sons and the sons' sons. He says, pardon the evil. Evil. This is, remember, we're talking about iniquity and transgression. Here it is right here. Perversity, evil, that's the word that gets translated as iniquity. Transgression is rebellion. Pasha, revolt, rebellion. Pardon the iniquity of this people, of the people. Look what it says. The people. The people. Who are the people? The men people. I pray according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. Then Yehovah said, I have pardoned. Look at what he says, you guys. According to your word. Your word. Your Derek. I have pardoned according to your word. Oh, that's amazing. Moses was his shalach, his sent one, his representative on the earth. Look here's what I was telling you about with Pharaoh. So Yehovah said to Moses, see, I have made thee Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. He speaks mouth to mouth with Moses. What Moses says, he does. You know, we saw this with Joshua. Joshua said, when we were taking the land of Canaan for ourselves. He says, "Sun, stand still until our enemies are defeated." And the sun stood still 23 and a half hours that day. 21. "But truly, as I live," oh, listen to this, "as I live, but truly, as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yehovah." This is prophetic. Do you value the words of Yehovah? I hope you do. Because if you do, you'll learn to act on them. Yehovah is swearing by himself. Will we believe him? He often swears by his own name. Here he is. "As I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yehovah." Has the earth been filled with the glory of Yehovah yet? As he lives, it will be. Do you want to be a part of it? I want to be a part of it. Here's what I put. This is a prophetic statement for the last days. Even now, at every Passover, Yehovah is raising up Israel's seed from out of the places where he has scattered us. We will have his glory, his kavod, his pillar of fire and smoke over us. Over us also for the earth to see. Do you want to be a part of that? Hasn't happened yet. There's still time. I put, are we waiting for him? You know, I think a lot of people think we're waiting for Yehovah. They're so confused. We're saying, "Come, Lord Jesus." No, Yehovah's the one that's coming in a cloud to judge his people and all the people of the earth. Are we waiting for him? Or is it possible that he's waiting for us? You know, more and more at Passover, his Kassid are being risen up, born a second time, a spiritual birth into a spiritual kingdom. It's happening right now. How long will it take? If the ones that do it this year teach somebody to do it next year, it becomes exponential. It's inevitable. Gather together my kind, my saints, those who cut covenant with me by slaughter. Israel's seed was delivered from Egypt after we kept the Passover and entered into covenant with him, not before. Don't forget that. It's going to happen again. What has been said, how's it go? I always forget that. What has been said, what has been done will be done again. What has been said will be said again. You know what? Like always, let's go to it. Ecclesiastes 1:9. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. What can we do to further Yehovah's image and kingdom on the earth? That's what I want to do. I want to raise up his image and his kingdom on the earth. And it begins with repentance. It begins by leaving the kingdom of your birth, making him your only Elohim, just as Abraham did. And then coming into covenant with him at Passover. This is prophetic. All the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yehovah. When was the last time you saw the glory of Yehovah, pillars of fire and smoke all over the earth? Been a while, like never. What does it say? The good men are the ones who heed his voice and then demonstrate that they believe him by acting on what he says. Because all these men have seen my glory and the signs. Hear that? The signs and the glory are two different things, aren't they? Which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have put me to the test now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice. These men have not heeded my voice. What is it they say for men? Enoshim. Here it is right here. Enoshim is the plural, or Enoshim is the plural form of Ish. Just as Nashim is the plural form of Isha. The Enoshim. Surely all these Enoshim, all the Enoshim. That's what he's saying. All the Enoshim. Who have seen my glory and the signs which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have put me to the test now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice. It's about the men. Ladies, follow your man. Men, follow Yehovah. They certainly shall not see the land which I swore to their fathers. They certainly shall not see the land which I swore to thy fathers. Listen what he's saying. Nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. He's talking about the men. Are the ladies going to see it? I don't think they are. Not their ladies, not their women. Because they go where their men go for the most part. But remember, they said, that we might fall by the sword, and that our women and our tough would be victims. That's what they said. But now he says, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it, but my servants, my Avedi, Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land where he went, and his descendants, his seed, shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwelt in the valley. You know what? That's really a good way of saying it. They always want to say the Hittites and the Jebusites and the all the different ites, who really are all Canaanites anyway. Here they're doing Amalekites and Canaanites. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move into the wilderness by way of the Red Sea. Tomorrow turn and move to the wilderness by way of the Red Sea. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwelt in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move into the wilderness by way of the Red Sea. We're going backwards. And Yehovah spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear this evil assembly who complain against me? I have heard the complaints which Israel's seed make against me. Israel's seed is making complaints against him. Say to them, here it is again, as I live, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. What did they say in his hearing? Here it is. See verse 3. Why has Yehovah brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our women and our children, Toph, should become victims? Would it be better for us to return to Egypt? According to your word, let it be done. Well, what happened? Let's look. But Joshua, the carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in the wilderness. All of you who were numbered according to your entire number, from 20 years old and above. Who's he talking to? He's talking to all of Israel. Everyone who is numbered 20 and above. How many was that? 603,550 men. Plus the Levites. They're going to die too, aren't they? They were numbered. Everybody's going to die. Minus 2 men. Joshua and Caleb and their seed, their sons. If they've got sons over 20, they may, very likely do. So all who are numbered of Israel's seed by their fathers' houses, from 20 years old and above, all who were able to go to war. You know, it's funny, it didn't say that in Yasher. All who were numbered who were 603,550. But now look what it says. Except for Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizites, and Joshua, the son of Nun. You shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. Oh, this is severe consequences. But which is more severe, being destroyed completely? I guess they're better off. I said, remember, Caleb was a Gentile, Esau's seed. Joshua was Jacob's seed. Both men lived according to what Yehovah said. They believed Yehovah. How much more will Yehovah rejoice to raise up men who have never seen his glory or his signs, but still follow him? Ooh, I want to be one of those men. Never saw Yehovah's glory, never saw Yehovah's signs, but I'm still going to believe him and follow him. Will you? You know, I think it's interesting too. We had Joshua and Caleb. Is this a shadow picture? Caleb was a Gentile, worse, Esau's seed. Of course, Joshua was a Benjamite, I think, but he was a son of Jacob. He was Jacob's seed, if you will. But they're both Israel's seed because they repented, left the kingdom of their birth, and now have entered into covenant with Yehovah. Difference between Jacob's seed and Israel's seed. They're not the same. But for these last days, we have men who potentially are and do have, we call them Jews. You know, there must be others out there who have seed that come from Jacob. Most of the seed, unfortunately, has been scattered into the land, hasn't it? We don't even know who we are. I don't know who I am. I did a search on my blood. I've got a little bit of Levite in me. But what does that mean? We don't know. Who knows? But right now, Yehovah is looking for men who have his Torah written on their heart and will follow him, not the kingdoms of this earth. But look at what he says. But your little ones. But your little ones, you're tough. They said it would be the women and the children, the women and the tough should become victims. But your little ones, you're tough. And you're tough, is what it says. And your little ones. Yeah, you're tough. I would stay with children. Doesn't have to be little ones. It might be little ones, might be big ones. They're 19 and under, aren't they? Sounds like we're talking about men and women. Sounds like it. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness. Oh, I said, apparently their women died with them. Because look what he's saying. Only their children, they're tough, are not going to be victims. Instead, they will be victims. Instead, they will be victors, is what I was trying to say. Victors. Yeah, they're going to be victors. Well, the men are going to be victors. They're going to see the land. But now look what he says. And your sons will be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years and bear the brunt of your infidelity until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. Why 40 years? He could have plagued them like he is going to do to the 10 spies who brought back a bad report. Did you realize that the 10 spies died? I think it's because they were not all wicked. You know, that's it. How does Yehovah... I mean, I'd be bum-beefed if I was a man who wanted to live and follow Yehovah, but all the men around me in the camp didn't want to do it, and I lost out because of them. It says all Israel, but all Israel, there had to be men who were righteous. There had to be men who wanted to follow Yehovah. They weren't leaders. They couldn't stand out like Caleb and Joshua. I said, why 40 years? He could have plagued them like he's going to do to the 10 spies who brought back a bad report. I think it's because they were not all wicked, or perhaps had different degrees of wickedness. I think that's it. I'm guessing that the more righteous men lived the longest. Could that be? I think so. We're going to see that starting right now, we're still going to see men rebelling against Yehovah. And those men are going to be the first to die. Not going to make it even 40 years. They're going to perish almost immediately. The next day for some of them. Let's take a look. According to the number of days in which you spied out the land, 40 days. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years. And you shall know my rejection. Remember, they rejected Yehovah. Now he's going to get to know their rejection. You scorned him. Now you're going to know my rejection. I put, they rejected Yehovah, so he's rejecting them. Again, we are talking about the men. Men people. I, Yehovah, have spoken this. I will surely do it. Well, can you be more? I swear by myself. None of you will see the land except Caleb and Joshua. But Yehovah does. What Yehovah says, he does. Believe him. All the earth shall be filled with my glory. I want to be a part of that. I, Yehovah, have spoken this. I will surely do it. So all this evil assembly who gathered together against me in the wilderness, they shall be consumed, and there they shall die. Well, here it starts. Now the men whom Yehovah, did I have a thing for the men? Now the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the assembly complain against him by bringing a bad report of the land, those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before Yehovah. They were the first ones to die. It reminded me of this verse in Jeremiah 23. Woe to the shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, says Yehovah. Thus says Yehovah, Elohim of Israel, against the shepherds who feed my people. These are men, chosen men, that were sent out to spy out the land. You have scattered my flock, driven them away, and not attended to them. That's not exactly what they did. Behold, I will tend to you for the evil of your doings, says Yehovah. There it is again. What has been done will be done again. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, remained alive of the men who went to spy out the land. They had a different spirit on them. Then Moses told these words to Israel's seed. And the people mourned greatly. Israel's seed are the people. And they rose early in the morning and went to the top of the mountain. Look at what they're doing. They rose up early in the morning and went to the top of the mountain. Where are they supposed to be going? Down, back towards the Red Sea. Saying, here we are, and we will go up to the place which Yehovah has promised, for we have sinned. They're repenting, thinking that Yehovah, who just swore by himself, saying, you're going to die. You're going to have to go the other way. We're not going into land. You will not see the land. We've got to learn to believe Yehovah. And Moses said, now why do you transgress the command of Yehovah? For this will not succeed. Do not go up, lest you be defeated by your enemies, for Yehovah is not among you. He just said, I won't take you to the land. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword, because you shall fall by the sword. Isn't that exactly what he said? In fact, that's what I have. Isn't that exactly what Yehovah said? Let it be done according to your word. What was his word? Why has Yehovah brought us up to this land to fall on the sword? Well, most of the Israel seed aren't going to fall on a sword, but these guys are. They need to learn to follow Yehovah and not presume that he will follow them. I think that's what we do. We expect that we're going to have Yehovah follow us instead of doing what he asks us to do and follow him. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword because you have turned away from Yehovah. Yehovah will not be with you. But they presume, there it is, but they presume to go to the mountaintop. Nevertheless, neither the ark of the covenant of Yehovah nor Moses departed from the camp. I remember there being, when the camp, or when the ark leaves, when the pillar leaves, the ark leaves, and it said something about, may your enemies be consumed. Do you remember that? Ark didn't go with them this time. We presume a lot of things due to our ignorance. Ignorance. Pretty bad when you don't spell ignorance right. Ignorance of Yehovah's word. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in the mountain came down and attacked them and drove them back as far as Hormah. You know what? I want to open my map. And here we are down here. They went up to the mountains. Well, I don't see Hormah though. I see Hebron. They went up into here. This is where the Amalekites were dwelling. and the giants. Remember, they said they were in Hebron. This doesn't have Hormah on it, though. Let's see if we can change the view a bit, or the period. Oh, yeah, that's my problem right there. Let me do this, save this, and I'll save that. There's Hormah right there. Drove them back to Hormah. They went up to the mountains. They drove them back to Hormah. We were in Kadesh Berea, and he's telling us to go back down to the Red Sea, to the wilderness of the Red Sea. Right down here, going the other way. Oh, my goodness. All right, 15. He's changing gears, kind of. He's going to talk about the Olah and the Shalamim, Karvan. Remember, the Karvan is all about drawing near to Yehovah. Before we had a temple, we could still bring Olah and Shalamim to Yehovah on an altar. He's going to talk about the first fruits of the land. We're going to talk about unintentional and presumptuous sins. And the last thing we're going to talk about is tzitzit. We're not going to get through this whole chapter, I don't think. So let's see what we can get through. And Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to who? Israel's seed, and say to them, when you've come to the land you are to inhabit, which I am giving you, and you make a fire. Here, let's do this. Yeah, we don't need those. You make a fire, and you make by fire to Yehovah an olah, or a slaughter. Zavik. It says sacrifice. Oh, man, the words that we use, you know, these words are important. When you see the word sacrifice, I want you to look it up. Find out what it actually says. It's probably going to be slaughter. Remember, slaughter is something that we're going to eat. The Passover is not a sacrifice. It's a slaughter. We see that in the beginning of 12 of Exodus. He says, and you make by fire to Yehovah a slaughter, a burnt offering, an olah, or a slaughter. The offering is another one that gets thrown in there. There's no offering. But olah, or a slaughter, to fulfill a vow, or as a desired free will in your appointed feast, to make a sweet aroma from the herd or to the flock. From the herd or to the flock. It's about making an aroma. Remember, the olah is entirely burnt up except for the skin. The shalamim burns the fat to Yehovah. Sweet aroma to Yehovah. We eat the rest of it. Coming from the herd or the flock. The herd, of course, is the cattle. The flock is both sheep and goats. Then he who presents his offering. There's a good translation of offering. It is the word karvan. Oh, I had some things in here about the slaughter, the olah. I want you to see this. Well, we're still here. This is talking about the herd and the flock. This is 7. We're talking about the shalamim. But if the slaughter, the zavik, of his karvan is a vow, neder, a promise, or spontaneous, it shall be eaten the same day that he brings his slaughter, his zavik. But on the next day, the remainder of it may be eaten. Then he who presents his korban to Yehovah shall bring a minka of 1/10 of an ephah of flour. Bring a minka of 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a minka. You shall prepare with the olah, or the zavik, for each lamb. It says lamb. This is a lamb or goats. It appears to be both. It's dominant, something dominant. It says lamb, but it's lamb or goats. This is for the burnt offering, or a shalamim for a lamb or a goat. Okay? Now it says, lamb or young goats. Lamb or young goats. Lamb. Because the next one, verse 6, is talking about the ram. And the ram is an older lamb or goat. This particular word. Or, so for the young goats, we're going to do one thing. And for the ram, we're going to do another thing. For the older goats, we're going to do another thing. It depends on what we want to bring. We're going to see there's going to be something else if we're going to use a bull for either an olah or a shalamim. There's going to be still another minka that needs to be brought with it. It says, or for a ram, for a, let's see what it says, for a yil, mature male lamb or goat. So there was a lamb or young goat. Remember, ram, usually when we talk about a ram, we're talking about a male adult sheep. Here we're talking about something different. And this one is, and then lamb, of course, lamb is a small sheep, less than a year old. And the goat, it says a young goat. That's how they translated it for the other one. So now here's the mature lamb and the mature goat. For the mature lamb or goat, you shall prepare a minka of 2 tenths instead of 1 tenth of fine flour, 1/3 of a hin of oil instead of 1/4 of a hin of oil, and 1/3 of a hin of wine as a sweet aroma to Yehovah. It says offer, you shall bring as a sweet aroma to Yehovah. Bring 1/3 of a hin of wine as a sweet aroma to Yehovah. And when you prepare a young bull, so now we're down to the bulls. We did the flocks, sheep and goats, well, young sheep, young goats, old sheep, old goats. Now we're going to do the bull. Are we going to do a young bull and an old bull? No, it doesn't look like it. And when you prepare a young bull as an olah, or a slaughter to fulfill a vow, or a shalamim to Yehovah, then you shall bring with the young bull a grain, a minka, 3 tenths, not 1 tenth, not 2 tenths, 3 tenths of an ephah of fine flour mixed with half a hin of oil. The other ones were 1/3 of a hin and 1/4 of a hin, wasn't it? 1/4 of a hin. Now it's a half a hin of wine, half a hin of oil, and you shall bring as the minka, half a hin of wine by fire, a sweet aroma to Yehovah. Thus it shall be done. Now, this is kind of a chiasm. We were talking about chiasms a couple weeks ago. This is another kind of a chiasm. They did he says the offering of the young goats. Then he talks about how to do it with the flocks, and then with the herds, and now he's going back to the overall picture by saying this: thus it shall be done for each young bull, for each ram, and for each lamb or young goat. According to the number that you prepare, so you shall do with everyone according to their number. So depending on how many we're doing it, this is what we're going to do. If we got a bunch of people to feed, we're going to do a bull. If we're going to do a bull and an older sheep, we're going to do things differently. But now look what he says. All who are native born shall do these things in this manner, in presenting by fire a sweet aroma to Yehovah. This is all the native born. The word here is all the Ezra men, all the Ezra. There it is right there. All the Ezra. Ha, Ezra. See that? There's only two kinds of men in Israel. You know what? You just get that into your minds instead of children of Israel. Start understanding that Ezra men are the children of Israel. And they have Ger who dwell with them. No Gentiles. That'll take you miles in understanding the scriptures. Most people will never even come to that understanding. But there's so much more to be understood. All who are native born shall do these things in this manner, in presenting by fire a sweet aroma to Yehovah. All these other words, an offering made by, offering made by, these are all added words. But now look what he says. And if a ger dwells with you, who's you? The Ezra man. Or whoever among you throughout your generations would make a fire, a pleasant savor unto Yehovah, just as you do, so shall he do. He continues. One ordinance shall be for you of the assembly and for the stranger who dwells with you. One ordinance forever throughout your generations. As you are, so shall the stranger be before you. Well, you know what? That's what it says. But even within that context, the instructions many times apply to the Ezra man differently than they apply to the stranger. But it's still the same law. We've got to be alert to that. New thought. He's going to talk about the bread that we're going to bring. He says, again, Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Israel's seed and say to them, why Israel's seed? Not talking to the Ger. The Ger don't own land. The Ger dwell on Israel's seed's land. This is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Speak to Israel's seed and say to them, when you come into the land to which I bring you, then, here, what do I have? Probably says, oh, maybe I don't have anything there. Then it will be, when you eat the bread of the land, that you raise up a present. It says, you shall offer a heave offering. Ugh. Raise up a present. This is going to be a minka. Raise up a present to Yehovah. This is newly harvested from the lechem, the grain. Raise up a present. Here's room. High, to rise, raise. Raise up a present. We're burning some of it into the fire, raising up a present. The present that we're talking about is terumah. Terumah. We have a terumah that we give to the priests from our shalamim, the breast and the one of the legs. The present is the smoke that comes from the altar going up to Yehovah. But again, it's our first fruits. It says, you shall raise up. Usually it's bring when they say this. This is raise up. You shall raise up a cake of the first of your ground meal as a present from the threshing floor. So you shall raise it up. So you shall raise it. That's what I had. Ye men, talking about men, shall raise up a cake of the first of your dough for a present, as a present from the threshing floor. So ye shall raise it. This is our job. Talking to Israel's seed, the ones who own the land. Of the first fruits of your ground, you shall give it to Yehovah, a present throughout your generations. There we are, a present again. Why? Why do we give it to Yehovah? Because he gives the increase of the ground to us. This is why we give it back to him. Thank you, Father. Thank you for the increase of our seed. He's the one that increases the seed. He's the one that increases the flocks. Later on, we'll see the flocks. That's the first fruits. Now he switches gears yet again. If you sin, here, let's do this. If ye shall stray, make a mistake or err, this is what we're talking about, unintentionally. Make a mistake. There is no word sin there. It's this word here. Make a mistake. It's shagah. Yeah, shagah. Shagah. If you shagah and do not observe these commandments which Yehovah has spoken to Moses, all that Yehovah has commanded you by the hand of Moses, from the day Yehovah gave commandments and onward throughout your generations. Is he talking to the men who are still left in the wilderness for the 40 years? If you shagah, here it is right here. If y'all shagah, that's what he's talking about, all of Israel's seed, and do not observe these commandments which Yehovah has spoken to Moses, and all Yehovah has commanded you by the hand of Moses from the day Yehovah gave commandments and onward throughout your generations, then it will be if a shagagah is done, something that is done not on purpose, this is by accident, is done without knowledge of the congregation. So here's one that's without knowledge of the congregation. We're going to do the congregation, then we're going to do, we'll find out. That the whole congregation shall bring one young bull as an olah, a sweet aroma to Yehovah, with its grain. We just talked about what the grain is, and its drink, according to the ordinance, and a buck of the goats. A buck of the goats. What is the buck of the goats? A sair of the goats. A buck of the goats. To close the breach. We have created a breach between us and Yehovah. This is as a congregation. Seems like it's happening a lot these days, doesn't it? And the kata'ah, here it is, for a kata'ah. It says for a kata'ah. It's about closing the breach. To close the breach is how I wrote it there. 2 or 4 is the lamed. To close the breach, to bring us back into unity with Yehovah. We don't want to have that, even an unintentional sin, to separate us from Yehovah. 15:25. So the priest shall cover the whole congregation, the whole assembly of Israel's seed, and it shall be forgiven them, for it was unintentional. They shall bring their korban by fire to Yehovah, and their kata'ah. They have their sin offering, their kata'ah, their thing for closing the gap before Yehovah, for their shagagah. Well, actually, that's not shagagah in that particular case. It is this word. Oh, it is shagagah, for their unintentional mistake. Let me read it again with my translation here. So the priest shall cover the whole congregation, assembly of Israel's seed, and it shall be forgiven them, for it was an unintentional mistake, a shagagah. And they shall come with their korban. Remember, it's about drawing near to Yehovah by fire unto Yehovah, and their shagagah. So they're going to bring their olah and their kata'ah. Okay, let's go back here. We're on 15. 15:25. There's 15:26. For their unintended sin, it shall be forgiven the whole congregation of Israel's seed and the stranger who dwells among them, because all the people did it unintentionally. Oh, isn't that interesting? He gave the instructions to Israel's seed. They're taking it from Israel's seed because the goats don't come from the people who dwell with them. They don't have the stuff, but these guys do. If a person sin, and it shall be forgiven the whole congregation of Israel's seed, the whole assembly of Israel's seed. There it is, the whole assembly of Israel's seed, and the stranger who dwells with them, because the people did it unintentionally. Oh, I think it's so interesting. It's not saying anything about the Gentiles, is it? Israel's seed, the assembly of Israel's seed, and the stranger. And if a person sins unintentionally, and he shall bring a female goat of the first year as his. He shall bring, and if a person sins, here's kata, person nefesh, first person, imperfect, shall, second person, masculine, singular, sins unintentionally, shagagah, then he shall bring a female goat of the first year to close the breach. What is the word they're using there? Kata'ah, to close the breach. So the priest, same as 4. It doesn't have anything about doesn't have anything to say about the this is a sin offering. Leviticus 4 is all about the sin offering, the kata'ah. If a nefesh, any man, shall miss the mark, kata'ah, sin, there it is there, kata'ah, sin, in ignorance, shagagah, by doing something against the commandments of Yehovah in anything that ought not to be done, and is guilty, that is Hashem, when the knowledge comes of his kata'ah, his breach, maybe that's his kata'ah. I have kata'ah. It comes of his kata'ah. It says kata'ah, which he sinned. He missed the mark, which he sinned, missed the mark. Kata'ah. Yes. Then he shall bring his korban, a kid of the goats, a female. Yeah, there's the female too. For his kata'ah, for which he sinned, missed the mark. Kata'ah, for which he sinned. All right, so that's an agreement. So the priest shall make a covering. So the priest shall cover the ignorant mistake, the shagagah, of the person when he sins in ignorance before Yehovah, before Yehovah's face, to cover him, and it shall be forgiven him. So we had one for the congregation, and we had one for the individual. And you shall have one law for him who sins unintentionally, for him who is native born among Israel's seed and for the stranger who dwells among them. Again, Israel's seed, the native born. I just think this is so good for us to understand that the native born are Israel's seed and the stranger who dwells with them. One law for two different kinds of men. But the person who does anything presumptuously, this is on purpose. And the person, the nefesh, who acts openly, presumptuously, on purpose. He says, open betrayal. Ooh, we know what we're supposed to do, but we're going to do it in open betrayal. Ooh, that you don't want to do that to Yehovah. Whether he is native born or a stranger, that one brings reproach. Brings Yehovah reproach. And shall be cut off from among his people. Isn't this exactly what's going on in the land right now? These men who are rejecting Yehovah and being killed? Oh, we're really going to see that in the next chapter. Shall be cut off from among his people. You can only get kicked out from among Yehovah's people if you are an Ezra or a Ger. The Gentile cannot get kicked out because he's not Yehovah's people. You got to make yourself Yehovah's people first. This word reproach brings reproach. Gadaf is the word that they're using here. Gadaf. It says hack, revile. Is this about speaking? Blasphemy, because this gets translated as blaspheme often. Is this talking about what we say? Or is it talking about what we do? This is about doing something on purpose. What was the word that they used up here? I really like that. Open betrayal. That's more than just words, isn't it? Of course, the words are important. The words that we say are important. But more so what we do. So here's definitions. This is word study, and this is Strong's. Word study says this: a verb meaning to revile, to blaspheme, is described. It describes the conscious verbal abuse of a person of Elohim. I just think, how goofy is this? I put, how stupid is this? Verse 30 is part of a chapter talking about sin and obedience to the Creator. Blaspheme is intentional sin being committed by someone that says he follows Yehovah. Is it verbal or is it more than that? I think it's more than that. I see reproach, gadaf, as a substantive noun. The opposite of me'od. Remember, when we said love Yehovah with all our heart, with all our lavav, with all our nefesh, with all our me'od, we were talking about doing it in compliance with Moses' instructions. Here's someone that is purposely defying Moses' instructions. Instead of being openly compliant to Yehovah's word, the gadaf is openly defiant to Yehovah's words. That's what it seems like we're talking about here anyway. We're almost done. Because he despised the word of Yehovah and has broken his commandment, that person shall be cut off. His guilt shall be upon him. Now, well, Israel's seed were in the wilderness. They found a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. So now Yehovah gives an example of a man acting in open betrayal of his instructions. And those who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moses. and Aaron, and to all the assembly. And they put him under guard because it had not been explained what should be done to him. Then Yehovah said to Moses, the man must surely be put to death. All the assembly shall stone him with stones outside the camp. Who's the assembly? Israel's seed. The Ger are not going to be stoning anybody. The women are not going to be stoning anybody. The children are not going to be stoning. It's Israel's seed, the Ezra men. So, as Yehovah commanded Moses, all the assembly brought him outside the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died. New context, or new thought. This is about Zitzi. Again, Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Israel's seed. Speak. Who's Israel's seed? The Ezra men. Tell them to make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue thread in the tassels of the corners. And you shall have the tassels, that you may look upon and remember all the commandments of Yehovah and do them. But look at what he says. And how would I underline it? And y'all will not seek the harlotry to which your own heart, your heart and your own eyes are inclined. There's two things here. I'm just going to read it on the right-hand side. It says, to remember all the commandments of Yehovah. That's why people say they wear the tzitzit, is to remember all the commandments of Yehovah. But there's more. And that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined. There's two things, isn't there? We are trained to be harlots, to follow the governments of the land. And that's where we always default to. I mean, you talk about not driving with insurance. What? You don't drive without insurance? That's irresponsible. Why is it irresponsible? How old is insurance? Insurance is no more than 70, 80 years old. The last I knew of Wisconsin, they didn't even require insurance. But see, we're so trained in these things that it doesn't even, our hearts are inclined towards harlotry. He goes on, and that you may remember to do all my commandments. He's repeating himself again, isn't he? To do all my commandments and be holy to your Elohim. What did he say? Remember to do all my commandments, verse 39, to do all my commandments and not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined. Now he's saying the same thing again, just in a different way. That you remember to keep all my commandments and be holy to your Elohim. Now listen to what he says. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Don't follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined. He's actually taking this right from the very first commandment. Look what it says. I am Yehovah, thy Elohim, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other Elohim existing before my face. Follow my commandments and don't follow the harlotry to which your own eyes and your own hearts are inclined. Follow only Elohim. No other Elohim existing before my face. All right. Well, that finishes it for today. I'm sorry I went kind of long. I really wanted to finish this chapter. Next week, we're going to talk about Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. But it's also On. Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and On. Everybody forgets about On. I think On repented before the end, and it was only the three who had their tents swallowed. On seemed to back off on his ideas. Well, we'll find out next week. Thank you for joining me. We'll see y'all later. Love you all. Bye now.